You're not standing, are you? Well, I had kind of a strange thing. I was listening to a show a few months ago. Cliff Kincaid and Tom DeWeese both say that Alex Jones and Webster Tarpley are agent provocateurs. I know that sounds so funny that I would almost fall on my chair. Any comments?
I find no evidence of that.
Me neither.
I mean, I've known Alex for 11 years.
I think we should put him on
I've never seen him do anything untoward.
And I think that Webster Tarpley, most of what he says is absolutely right. And I've even had him on my program. I wonder why these people are trying to discredit Alex. Well, of course, if they discredit him, they discredit everything he said. And I've read those articles.
They're jealous.
And I'm very concerned when people try to destroy others within the conservative movement. I have to ask, why would they do that? I may disagree with some people, but I certainly don't come out and attack them viciously and without justification, in my estimation. I just don't know. I don't know why they did that. We'll be back in just a moment here at Radio Liberty. Well, this is Dr. Stan, and suddenly we have Bob calling from Ohio. We, of course, have Bob Chapman on the line. Bob, you just hang on there for a minute because I want to do a little business. Bob from the International Forecaster. How can people get a copy of your publication and subscribe to it? Now, I will tell our listeners it comes twice a week, 40 pages, but I always try to read it when it comes because it's also fascinating information you won't hear elsewhere. And what Bob just brought out there in the first part of this program about the fact that they're going to now stop paying interest on the money that is deposited with the Federal Reserve System means the banks are going to start lending now. I mean, this is one of the biggest things that's happened in the last year. And, of course, you're not reading a word about it in the controlled media, and you're not going to hear about it from the controlled television. So, Bob, how can people get in touch with you and get a copy of the International Forecaster?
Well, we have two sites, theinternationalforecaster.com. That's theinternational, FORECASTER.com, or you can go to www.intforecaster.com, intforecaster.com, or if you want to email us, and we answer everybody, you can email Bob at intforecaster.com. And if you'd like to call in, because we do have a hard copy that goes out twice a month, that number is 800-375-4188. 800-375-4188. You can get a free introductory copy of either kind.
Okay, fine. And Bob from Ohio, now, just ask your question.
Well, the question was, we can't even get the public to understand how important these trade laws are in putting these tariffs up. And maybe Bob has some thoughts. We can't even get a small and medium-sized business person. Even through the 90s when I was on talk radio trying to stop all these deals. And my belief is, and see if Bob maybe would agree with this, back in the 90s, 40% of the people were Republican, 40% Democrat, and only about 20% were nonpartisan or independent. They voted for Bush. They voted for Clinton back then. And I think that they are in denial and will not admit that they should have maybe voted for Howard Phillips or Ralph Nader or Ross Perot or Jesse Jackson or Pat Buchanan that was trying to stop these trade deals.
Okay, let's get Bob's response. Why won't people, accept the fact that we've got to get the trade barriers up there if we're going to protect American industry, unless we want all of our industry to go overseas? Bob?
It's part of the propaganda process. The American people are sewn up. They have been subjected to misinformation and propaganda for years. Movies, television are geared to 13-year-old people. 8% of the population reads. I mean, you've got to be kidding me. And they don't want to step out of line and say, well, gee, I think we should have tariffs on goods and services again to get back the 8 million jobs we lost in the last 11 years. They're afraid to speak out, and they don't quite understand it either. It's a realm that's a little bit away from them. And, of course, everybody in Congress has been paid off, with minor exception, So you're not going to get any help there. But people are afraid to step out.
Bob, excuse me, the other problem is people under 50 don't know anything about manufacturing cars and auto and steel because they weren't around then.
All right, well, I think the most important thing is to realize that the media is controlled. The churches are controlled. The educational system is controlled. And, we talk about, wanting tariffs. Why, you're a protectionist. Why, terrible. Don't you know what happened during the Great Depression when they put in the Smoot-Hawley? Why, that's why we had a depression, was they put in the Smoot-Hawley. Most people don't know who Smoot was. They have no idea who Hawley was. But when the people like Rush Limbaugh and the others, and Shan Hannity and the liberals all come out, we couldn't have tariffs. We couldn't protect ourselves. They do not understand there is an agenda. It's a globalist agenda. It is aimed at destroying this country. There really are covert organizations that want to transfer our wealth to other countries. That's the message we have to get out, Bob. Go ahead.
Can I make one last comment?
Sure, go ahead.
That's exactly what Al Gore said to Ross Perot about 17 years ago. Do you remember that's what happened when we put tariffs on that caused the depression? They were setting us up and giving us that propaganda 17 years ago, and maybe you're right, Pastor Stan, people are still believing that.
Well, that's our job is to get the information out. That's why I do what I do. Hope you get back on Talk Radio. God bless.
I want to say one thing further.
Go ahead.
As far as I can discern, there are no newsletter writers who share this gentleman's opinion, your opinion, and my opinion on tariffs. It is amazing to me.
That's what also I'm
saying,
Bob. Yeah. How about Schiff? He doesn't even talk about tariffs.
Well, he doesn't want. He wants to get elected.
Yeah, I know.
He doesn't talk about his business either.
He's playing the game.
Because his charges are absolutely outrageous, and his track record stinks.
Okay, let's go to Dave calling from Texas. Hi, Dave. How are you doing?
Evening, Dr. Stan. It's good to talk to you and Bob again. Couple of quick points and one quick comment and then a question for Bob. A couple of the other options for a third candidate someone could have voted for in recent years that I'm sure Bob didn't fail to mention it intentionally, but could have been Ron Paul in 1988 or Harry Brown in 2000. But my main question for in terms of opposing free trade, in terms of my question for Bob, has to do with this recently passed financial bill. Couple things, one of which they try to make permanent the expanded coverage and FDIC account, which I think is actually more harm than good, because I don't think there's anywhere near enough money to fulfill the obligations of the promises made by it. So you can promise someone $1 million, but if you don't have a dime to give it to them, you're doing them much more harm than if you say you promise $100,000, but you can actually pay that. So what is worse? A promise you can keep or a greater promise, but one you have no capacity to keep? That was my question for Bob about the financial bill is, does he share my concern about this so-called Consumer Protection Agency, which I consider to be more likely a consumer control agency, put at that under the control of the Federal Reserve, and that, if I'm not mistaken, they may have also given the Federal Reserve either greater control or perhaps complete control over things like SEC and CFTC, which is like the fox watching the chicken coop. If so, I don't think they should have done that. And does he share my concerns? And that if that's the case, I would eventually want that undone or reversed. What's his commentary on things of that nature?
I agree with you completely. And it's a financial oligarchy is what it is. It's a dictatorial operation which controls the entire country. The SEC, the CFTC, which is Commodity Futures Trading Corporation, the new agency for consumer protection, the FDIC. They have now a oversight board, and the people on there are all appointed by the Fed itself. I mean, what good is that? I mean, it's like putting your whole family on the board of directors.
Amen.
And so it's the most dreadful piece of the legislation. And I saw Bart Chilton tell us that, something's going to be done about the concentration in the silver and gold markets by commercials who are banks. But the legislation is really wonderfully said. I mean, what far-out planet has he been living on? And he knows because he's told day after day by letter writers what's right and what's wrong, so he knows. He's just one of them, so to speak.
Well,
and I don't think we're going to get any satisfaction whatsoever.
Well, certainly David suggested it was like the fox guarding the chicken coop. I was thinking more like the vampire guarding the blood bank. But thanks very much, Dave. Let's go to Russell calling from Wisconsin. And again, our telephone number is 1-888-24-LIBERTY. 1-888-24-LIBERTY or 464-8295. Go right ahead, Russell.
Hi, I want to ask Bob a question. I've been noticing some books on Amazon, how to survive the next Great Depression, and I saw one by Peter Schiff. Have you seen any of these how-to books, how to survive the next depression or whatever, something similar?